Dorian had almost reached the dead bodies and the guns in the corridor beyond the cavernous chamber. David tackled him, sending Dorian face first into the floor. They came to rest in the drying pool of blood around the dead bodies. Their dead bodies. Dorian lifted his blood-soaked body just far enough to throw an elbow into David's face. David reeled back, and Dorian twisted and threw David off of him. He scrambled for the pistol lying 6 feet away. This was a fight to the death, and without the pistol, Dorian knew he would lose. Dorian felt David's fingernails dig into the back of his thigh the instant before the fist slammed into his lower back. Pain radiated from his back into his abdomen, and waves of nausea engulfed him. The second blow struck higher up, directly on his spine. He lost sensation in his legs. David crawled on top of him, preparing to finish him with a blow to the back of the head. Dorian set his palms on the bloody floor, and with every ounce of strength he could muster, threw his head back, connecting squarely with David's chin, knocking him off balance. Dorian commando crawled through the blood. He had the gun, and he flipped over just as David landed on top of him. David grabbed his wrists. Out of the corner of his eye, Dorian saw the Atlantean staring dispassionately, like a spectator at a dogfight who hadn't bet on this round. Dorian released the tension in his arms and let them fall quickly to the ground. David lunged forward, but held his grip. Dorian twisted the gun in his right hand, pointed it at the Atlantean, and pulled the trigger. David released Dorian's left hand and grabbed desperately for the gun with his right. Dorian formed a straight wedge with his left hand and drove it into David's upper abs, paralyzing his diaphragm. Dorian broke David's grip and shot him in the head. Then he turned the gun on the Atlantean and emptied the magazine. The Atlantean stared at Dorian with a look of mild amusement. Dorian's bullets had gone right through him. Dorian's eyes went to the other pistol in the chamber.
Want to try another gun, Dorian? Go ahead. I'll wait. I've got all the time in the world.
Dorian froze. This thing knew his name, and it wasn't afraid. The Atlantean stepped closer to Dorian. He stood in the pool of blood, but not a single drop stuck to his feet.
I know what you came here to do, Dorian.
He stared at Dorian, not blinking.
You came down here to save your father and kill your enemy, to make your world safe. You've just killed your only enemy down here.
Dorian tore his gaze from the monster and scanned the room for something, anything he could use. Sensation had returned to his legs, and he stood and staggered backward, away from the Atlantean, never taking his eyes off him. The Atlantean fixed Dorian with a smile, but made no effort to move. Dorian's mind raced. He had to get out. What did he need? An environmental suit. His father had worn Dorian's suit out. Kate's suit had been damaged, but maybe he could repair it. The suits the children had worn would be too small for him, but perhaps he could use some of the material to patch Kate's suit. He only needed protection from the cold for a few minutes, just long enough to get to the surface and order the attack. He turned and darted down the corridor, but the doors slammed shut in front of him and all around him, sealing every exit. The Atlantean materialized in front of Dorian.
You can go when I say you can go, Dorian.
Dorian stared at him with a mix of defiance and shock on his face.
What's it going to be, Dorian? The easy way or the hard way?
He waited, and when Dorian didn't respond, he nodded dispassionately.
So be it.
Dorian felt the air drain from the room like a vacuum. He fell to his knees. Spots dotted his vision. The floor raced up as he fell into darkness.